You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.
Friends, welcome to episode 5 of Storyteller Conclave. It's a show all about helping you run your best tabletop role-playing game that you can, whether you're a new storyteller or a dungeon master learning the craft, or an experienced storyteller looking to take your game to the next level. I am Sarah.
And I'm Rob.
And this week we are speaking a little bit about gaming in the digital era.
Yes, moving to, can I say the 21st century?
Moving into the 21st century, moving into the future.
Yeah.
We are living in the future, Rob.
Every day.
There are amazing tools available for all of us that just were not there back in...
Some that I learned about this week, which blew my mind.
Oh, yeah.
And others that I looked at and I said, is that still being taken care of and like supported?
Yeah. Started making our list for things to talk about, and the list just kept growing and growing and growing. So we'll get there, but we'll let's start with our typical news updates.
Yep. So in short, we are still working on the Patreon site. That is one minor thing that is keeping us limited on that one is we are waiting for the RSS feed to finish. Now, we are up on Google Music. You can find us there and subscribe to us, which we would love. We are waiting for the rest of the feed that will tie in with the iTunes and all the other feeders. Keep checking for updates on Podcast Detroit there, as well as our Discord and our Twitter feed. As soon as that is finalized and we get our hands wrapped around that, we will definitely do a shout out to everybody because it will be an exciting day.
You will know practically the minute it happens.
Yeah. Another thing that we did was we created a show notes and links because, especially from this show, we are going to end up with a ton of links for these tools, and we don't want you to lose out on those. We want you to be able to talk and actually review some of the stuff that we review. Go play with it and learn the way we're learning as well about new stuff. And today is going to be chock full of some of the things we love that we've used in the past, some stuff that we haven't seen in forever, as well as some new stuff that we hope that you'll give a shot to and maybe help improve your game and your gaming experiences.
Yep. So go ahead and check out that show notes and links channel on the Discord. If the channel is not updated with the show notes the very same night that we record on Wednesday nights,
just yell at us.
It'll probably be up first thing in the morning Thursday morning.
Or just yell at us.
But it'll be there, and you can always yell at us.
Completely yell at us.
We absolutely respond to that.
Yeah. So we have a guest, a special guest,
a very special guest,
an unbelievably special guest.
So we'd like to welcome to the show Sean Treppa, who is a storyteller and also, in interest of full disclosure, is also my boyfriend.
Yes.
You also, for those of you on the Discord, he is our moderator, Heatsink.
Yes. He does all the things.
He does all the things. And we've invited him to the show today because he's an extraordinarily techie person.
Yes.
And has delved into, firsthand, a lot of the technology that we're going to be talking about tonight. So, Sean.
Yeah. Hi. Hello, bees.
Hello,
Hi.
bees.
We, I would like to say that I thought I was technical and did lots of cool and neat things with technology with my gaming. And then I met Sean and went, wow, I am lame. Oh
my God, that's the thing. That's what I did when I first met you too.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Wow,
You're not lame.
Thank you. Thank you. I take all that back, and I'm leaving this podcast totally.
Right.
No.
So this will be our last episode.
Exactly. Yeah, this should be real fun.
It's going to be called The Sean Show.
Wait till my July show. This will all come back to haunt you.
Right, Sean, you just keep what you kill, you know?
Nice. So, Sean, you've got a rich history in technology as well as gaming, which we're going to focus on the gaming aspects because there's a lot more depth that you have that we could get into in other ways. But we're going to focus typically today and on the things that you know. And I'm going to pose a lot of questions to you directly that I don't necessarily have a huge handle on. I know we've talked a little bit about it before the show, and I've looked into some of the stuff, but I have just lightly grazed the surface of some of these things. Not because I don't want to, but because every time I have I felt like I stumbled into it. So I didn't get very far. So one of the first things that we're going to go to, and for me, it's because I've never actually used these as that, as the tool that they use for, and that is virtual tabletops, VTTs. And I see them online. I see people who go on Twitch and run their games through these things. I've seen a couple of shows actively use them. I've seen people who post on Reddit looking for a GM for my X game system, or like Roll20 or for my Fantasy Grounds, or I'm looking for players for my Fantasy Grounds, and I'm like, okay, do I have to buy things for this? So give us an idea of what a VTT really is and what it isn't.
Well, there is a cornucopia of VTTs out there. Some I have never even heard of, and I only found last night.
Yeah.
But in general, it's just a system or a piece of software that allows you to have a map and can usually control tokens in some manner.
Okay, so it actually gives you a surface to play on, and then on top of that might give you some, teleconferencing?
Some do have teleconferencing.
Okay.
The ones that do have internet connectivity that have a server attached, you can do chat and whatnot.
No, these all web-based? Like I connect to them, or are they local software, where I gotta build a server or something?
No, it just depends on the version of the software that you want.
Okay.
I mean,
well, give me a spin of some of them. So,
like Roll20,
okay.
That's online.
Okay.
You can sign up, go on the web, and it's available anywhere.
Okay.
And then there's Fantasy Grounds. These are the most popular ones that people have probably heard of.
Yeah, I saw Fantasy Grounds just did a Kickstarter on a Unity thing. Is that different?
Their Kickstarter, it's going to be exactly like Fantasy Grounds, but they're using it to update their software and become, I guess, match the modern tech that other VTTs are already implementing.
Right. From what I was looking into it looks like it adds a lot of features having to do with the graphical representations on maps and stuff like that. It allows you to do line of sight and lighting effects.
Oh, so like a fog of war?
Right. Very much like a fog of war. And if your character's holding a torch, it will put the proper illumination on in the darkness. And
now, are
like
these
that,
3D, 2D? What are we looking at? How high? I mean, this isn't like I'm looking at Baldur's Gate,
Right. So it's not a 3D map in your proper sense of a video game or anything like that.
Okay.
But it's more your traditional top-down grid-based view, much like you would see in, say, a published D&D module.
Okay.
Where you'd have a grid and you'd have a drawn top-down two-dimensional map that just shows where walls are, where windows are, things like that.
Now, am I bringing my own content to this stuff?
So a lot of these things have published content in there.
Okay.
I know Sean's worked a bit with that because we were running Princes of the Apocalypse for 5th edition for his game, and he was running that out of Fantasy Grounds. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about that.
Again, it's going to depend on which package that you grab. Roll20 has licensed content and modules. Fantasy Grounds has licensed content, and you, like Sarah mentioned, you can buy modules and play the game, and everything is set up for you.
So you can literally log into the thing and say, I want to play this game, and it'll pull down all the content, all the books, everything I would need effectively to just start playing?
Yeah, pretty much. There is usually a little bit of setup. I mean, you have to learn where everything is and how to interact with that software.
Are we talking I have to learn Photoshop level of education on these things?
No, they usually have all the maps in there for you.
Okay.
Everything that would be in the book you would buy is either scanned in or redone for that module. So they actually spend some time in adding the content to work with their system.
Okay.
So you could... When you put tokens down, you can click on tokens and they'll have all the information for that NPC or that player character if you've added it.
Oh, nice. Okay. And
so
you've DM'd
time.
this, but Sarah's actually played in the interface as a player too. Okay. So I got a questions for both of you then. So from the DM's perspective, you get a different view than Sarah does when you're running it. You can see everything. You can click on all the things and do whatever you want. Is it turn-based? Is there a control for the measure of the game? Is it almost like you're just playing a digital board game?
It depends on how you want to do it.
Okay.
It also, again, it's varying options. I know since I've used Fantasy Grounds more than most of them, you can restrict whether or not the characters can move their own tokens or have it only the GM or DM move it.
Okay.
But you can also force everyone's view to your view. So you can set something up, get it ready, and then say, okay, everyone, you're looking at this now. So everyone be on the same page, basically.
Oh, so effectively you can do like regular role playing where you're just kind of describing things and then, now we're in this bar fight. Boom, here's the bar fight.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of layers of control to it. Typically how Sean was using it, and I'm sure we'll touch more about this a little bit later when we start talking about, how all these sort of things come together.
Yeah.
Is more or less just using it as really in the rawest form of exactly what it says on the tin, a virtual tabletop.
Okay.
So instead of having a lot of people have like a vinyl mat and dry erase markers, well, they'll just draw the boundaries of whatever dungeon they're in or whatever.
Right.
Or maybe even have terrain set up. Sean was using this with a projector.
Oh, wow.
And projecting the maps straight from, the actual module maps that were printed and published in the book, projecting those down on a whiteboard, that we were playing with physical miniatures, but the map was right there, and we had the whole grid, all the terrain and stuff like that was just coming out of a projector suspended on the ceiling.
So you were literally, it's funny to say this, you have a physical tabletop, and you're virtualizing the map, if you will, at that point. So you're still physically all in the same room. You guys don't even have tablets or anything like that. He's just using the technology from the DM side, and you guys can still put your models right on it.
Yeah, he was just using it to essentially use a nice virtual terrain board, essentially, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a lot more convenient because then, of course, you can change out all this terrain and whatnot on the fly, and it's a little difficult to actually get your miniatures that are 1 inch to fit the squares right. You have to mess with zooming.
Well, I mean, obviously with the projection,
or you can calculate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's some heavy math in there
per inch or whatever.
Yeah.
And we used I used a run-of-the-mill projector.
Okay.
Kind of mid-level. I'm not exactly sure how much it cost. I think it was probably $300 something.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get a really cheap, good projector right now.
Well, I mean, you want to get something that's pushing out, effectively like a 50-inch screen size that you have that. But
you want something that has a pretty good throw, is what they call it. And usually you're going to be 3 feet away, so you got to look at what you have to accommodate what you're going to be using and how far away it's going to be.
You could also just put down, I mean, it's going to sound funny, but you could just grab a screen, like a flat panel TV, and throw it on a table. I've seen people who've done that. They've built them into the table.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that would also work. I think with the projector. Thank you.
Yeah,
I used a Chromecast and just casted to it, and that was the easiest way that I found because I had the Chromecast. So
nice. Well, cool. So you guys talked about Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds. Are there other ones that you have personally used or that you like using for doing that?
I definitely like using map tools.
Okay.
A lot of people complain about the interface, but it's just one of those tools. Like if you're a Linux user, it's just doesn't matter what it looks like. You want to accomplish something. It's a tool, and you don't really care what it looks like.
Gotcha.
Map tools is in that vein.
Okay,
and
it's like
really
Fantasy Grounds
tools.
may be like the Apple kind of soft interface, easy to use, whereas Map Tools is like the Linux command line. You better know what the hell you're doing, or else you're screwed.
Ugly as sin, but damned if it doesn't do the job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It basically has a like a Windows 7 like gray interface, nothing fancy,
real basic,
but it does what it needs to do, and it's actually more advanced than Fantasy Grounds in some ways.
Oh, really?
Which is actually why Fantasy Grounds has started that Kickstarter to run in Unity, because
essentially to catch up to Map Tools.
Okay. So those are cool. We'll definitely make sure we include links for all those sort of thing. So I'll have to say this in a simplistic way. Give me pros and cons for using a VTT over doing the traditional physical stuff. Like, give me one. I mean, this all sounds great to me. It doesn't sound like there's a con in any of this.
Well, I would say if there's one con that I've seen, and this is again is my experience as a player,
right?
And because I've played on Roll20, and I've played obviously in Sean's game where he was running that out of Fantasy Grounds, and I think that probably the biggest con is that a lot of times you spend a lot of time fiddling around with the technology.
Okay.
And it can take a lot more time than really, it would take in just a regular tabletop.
Gotcha.
Like I could just have a map ready to go and just drop it on the table, and we just put miniatures on the table, and we're ready to go in 2 minutes. But if the technology isn't cooperating with you, or if maybe like the tablet isn't connecting to the projector or something, or you can't get the focus right, or you can't find something or another, or your audio files are going, or if there's any number of fails that you can have from a technological basis that wouldn't occur with just physical media.
Okay, that makes sense.
Technology just continues to move forward, and it becomes more complicated every year, and that's going to show.
Right.
And in this sort of setup with a VTT and whatever you're using, the more technology you bring in, the more complicated it's going to be, the more likely you're going to run into a obstacle. And if you don't follow technology and you're not into it, and you're just kind of starting out like, oh, I want to try this because it looks cool, it might be kind of frustrating and stressful.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not for everybody, but for those who are technophiles or people who are comfortable getting into those things or are excited about it, it sounds like it'd be a pretty solid way to step in, but maybe to add on.
Or really, if it's your only option too. Like the Roll20 game that I was playing in was because the Storyteller was up in Muskegon.
Yeah,
and obviously we're not making that commute.
No,
from Detroit to Muskegon or anything.
It's like 9 hours, isn't it?
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah.
So, but didn't have anybody local to play with. Had a bunch of his friends down here in the Detroit area, and so kind of put the call out and said, "Does anybody want to play? We're using Roll20," and that instantly, distance was not an issue.
Yeah, and it sounds like a lot of these are very D&D friendly. I mean, are there other systems in these as well? I mean, Roll20 sounds to me like it is a D&D, multi-dice.
No, the exact opposite. In fact,
okay.
I would say it's probably the most system agnostic of the VTTs that I've seen.
Okay.
There are, dozens, if not hundreds of games. I couldn't give you the exact number, but there are a lot of games, and they all have like built-in character sheets and such like that. So you say like, I'm playing Call of Cthulhu 7th edition.
All right.
And they go, okay, well, here's your character builder, here's your tokens, here's your everything like that you will need for Call of Cthulhu's 7th edition.
Right.
And you're just ready to play.
Nice.
It seems to be a lot of them are game agnostic, as Sarah said. Even Fantasy Grounds, you can choose the game when you start a new campaign.
Okay.
It gives you the option. Map Tools, you can do anything you want with it. It has I think it has a scripting language that you can use.
So you could literally program your own
macros.
System.
Yeah, you can have it do anything and have automatic stuff, and you could build a pretty complex thing that could just do everything for you by a touch of a key.
Okay.
If you want to get into it more.
Okay, Sean. Okay, Sean.
Okay, Sean.
Okay. So stepping away from the online world, so we're going offline, bringing it back to the table, if you will.
Yep.
Way back in the day, I tried a projection thing with just using Photoshop. I will say it was marginally successful. But
was I there for that? Because I seem to remember.
You were there for that briefly. It was in the basement. And I like the idea of using a screen built into a table. For God's sakes, if I could have a $2,000 table with a screen built into it and cup holders and dice trays and all that, I would totally do that.
know.
So if anybody wants to send me one, please.
We will have the Patreon set up very soon. You can donate.
Yeah, we would love to test tables for people. That'd be great.
It's definitely on my list of things that I want to do.
Yeah, actually, there's quite a few people who talked about that. But
I think it's on every gamer's bucket list.
That you said that I haven't heard of in a long time was you were talking about live surfaces. So give our listeners a rundown of what a live surface is.
Well, I guess it would be similar to what we were discussing, is the projector or having a monitor.
Okay.
It would be even more live if it was a touch screen. But you're talking about adding like another $200-something to the screen.
Sure. I mean, hey, money's no. We just talked about a $2,000 gaming table. Come on.
Right.
But having a monitor in your table is definitely fantastic. And,
okay. But I mean, like when we're talking about a live service, are we literally talking about like I take a mini and I set it on the table and now it knows what that is?
The technology exists to do that.
Okay.
But
but good luck.
So this is all going to be like, you know, hand design. Like I'm going to have to go get some code and do this myself.
Well, there are, and I think it's built into things like Fantasy Grounds and map tools and such like that. I could be wrong, and I do know that some of the things that they were trying to update with Fantasy Grounds Unity,
right,
are to specifically add these sort of things.
Oh, all right.
I've seen, and I for the life of me, I don't know what software they were using to run this.
Okay.
But I did see like an animated map, where it was, they had projected a ship that was floating on some water, and the water was actually rippling.
That's badass.
And the ship was just slightly swaying side to side so that it was, it was kind of giving you that look, but it wasn't shifting where the grid was. So, it wasn't moving out from underneath the miniatures and things like that.
Nice. Okay.
I saw like a mountain pass that had some trees and stuff like that, and the grass and the leaves were all blowing in the wind and whatnot.
Okay. This all sounds badass to me.
And it was just built on like a 54-inch flat screen plasma TV that was built into the bottom of a table, and they put a sheet of plexiglass over the top of it so that you could, set things on it without ruining the screen, and they were just projecting their live surface to this TV.
That sounds fantastic. I could easily see them enhancing that, where like your character casts flame spray and fire shoots out from your little tile.
Yeah.
Live. I think that there's definitely promise there. I think later on we're gonna have to ask, is it worth it or not? But I think I'm gonna hold off on that because there's a lot to discuss.
That's a big question. Yeah.
So
if people are wondering, I think Map Tools does have the technology available to do those sort of things with the macro system that they have in place.
Okay.
So if you wanted to like cast a spell, you could have it show up.
Nice.
When you cast a spell.
Nice. Okay. So I know from my history and from just knowing you, Sarah, that we mutually have a love for minis and terrain.
Oh, yeah.
And the physical stuff in the world. So for years, I bought the lead figurines and the plastic ones thereafter. I know that there are some that I'll never go back to because literally they're leaded, and I am shitty at getting my stuff painted. I will say that. But there's something to be said for that physical stuff and how it's evolved. And you were talking about some of the companies that have really made a difference on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Bones Reaper minis are incredibly inexpensive and easy. And I have been friends with people who have gone on the Kickstarters and spent hundreds of dollars, and we've all chipped in money to get it. And like, I think I threw in like $20 and ended up with like 13 or 14 minis that are amazing. Just amazing.
Yep.
Out of one kit, I got gifted a whole ton for a birthday, and they said it was not that expensive. Like this has made a huge change for both of us. I think.
Absolutely. The advances in modeling technology, I think, have been have really come a long way. So like you said, you've got your Reaper Bones. I think Reaper Bones are a great step away from your pewter and lead minis. Pewter and lead minis are the most awful things in the world.
Yeah.
Go ahead and fight me on Twitter, fight me on Discord. I will go to the mats on this one. It's the hill I will die on. But plastic minis or resin minis are where it's at, because I've been playing with pewter minis since BattleTech back in high school. So like we're talking late 90s.
Yeah.
And never going back. So Reaper Bones taking that step beyond there, making high quality miniatures that are cheap. They're plastic. They're readily available. You can find them in pretty much just any hobby shop. But even things like Games Workshop. And I know they come with a real premium on price.
Right.
But at the same time, they also have really great modeling technology that they've got going for them.
Yeah.
Their models have increased in detail and quality. It's mind-blowing detail that they put into these miniatures. But again, you do pay a premium price for that.
Right.
And some of their minis, because it's all really based around their Warhammer IP,
right.
Warhammer and Warhammer 40K IPs, is that so it may be difficult to find like a custom mini that you're looking for unless you're playing a Space Marine in your role playing game, you know?
Right. I mean, like if I'm doing like something steampunk, there might be something that fits there, but probably not. Or like I love 7th Sea and I love that time period and stuff, and it's hard to find period minis for those things. But now we have all these different outlets. I mean, I know at one point, cause I went to Gen Con and we wanted to bring custom minis, me and the guys that were coming, cause we were going to be playing someone else's system. And so we were doing this, and you brought up the fact that we could get them done through like Hero Forge, where you can have them done for you online.
Yep.
Which I think is great because I loved Hero Forge when it first came out. I was part of the original Kickstarter for Hero Forge and got my first 2 minis, which, by the way, they're great, but unfortunately, I will say this, their initiative went through the roof, and now they build amazing stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But I loved being able to position, like saying, I want a cutlass in this hand, and I want a bottle in this hand, and I want to have like a lunging pose, and a snarl on my face, and I want to look a little crazy. Like, you can do all of that through Hero Forge, and now we've got like 4 or 5 other companies that are doing this just as good, if not better in some cases, where they want to push that edge of how much you can customize, how close you can get to making exactly what you want. My question, I guess, is, and you get closer to actually purchasing these things and working with them, do you feel that customization comes at too high of a price?
Oh, I don't think so at all.
Okay.
Honestly, for what you're getting. Cause I mean, gaming over the years, we're talking 25 years gaming experience. The number of times I have done the, go online or even back in the day before that existed, go to your local game store or get the catalog, the physical catalog.
Right.
And look through all the miniatures and just hope you find one that looks just enough like your character, or maybe, they're just right, but they're holding a mace instead of a sword. So, you can clip off the sword from another one and glue it on there or something like that.
Bash it together.
Bash it together for you,
Yeah.
if you're into that sort of thing. But that starts getting into levels of expertise of modeling and such like that.
Okay.
I would like to point out a little tip and tricks kind of thing.
Sure.
If you remember those Hero Quest board games, those box
HeroClix?
HeroClix.
No, Hero Quest.
Oh, the board
yeah,
games.
yeah,
Yeah, back
board
in the day.
game.
Yeah.
So there's alternatives. There's a lot of different of those large tile set board games. Like Descent is one that my brother had.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Dungeons & Dragons actually has like an adventure system board.
Yep.
But some of those games come with like 40, 60, 70 minis, and they're pretty good quality.
Okay.
And these games only cost like $35, $40.
Okay.
So that's a good place to find some minis. And like I said, they're pretty good sometimes. You just gotta paint them up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they come with tiles too that you could use for your own game as well. So you don't need to use it for that board game.
That's true. Okay. Now, speaking of Gen Con, when we did do ours, you actually printed our minis for us.
I did, yes.
That whole thing right there, we could go into a day's worth of conversation about it, but I want to get your take in like 5 minutes or less on, do you think that we've hit the right sweet spot for doing your own minis at home?
I think we're at the beginning of the golden years of minis and those kind of things for RPGs and tabletop gaming.
Okay.
Because obviously you can make game pieces for any game with a 3D printer, not just D&D minis.
True.
So I mean, just like in the industries that they were invented for, it can do a lot for you.
I mean, it's rapid prototyping in your own house, which is great because you can do more than just minis with it, which is wonderful. Like, hey, I need this part for my, that's an attachment on my car. As long as it's not heat, I can make it.
Yeah, the resin printers have fantastic quality, and they're coming down in price, like an SLA or DLP printer. $400, $500. It's still kind of high,
right?
But it's cheaper than, say, like the Form 2, which is like a $2,000, $3,000.
Oh wow, okay.
And it has quality that's on par,
right?
I mean, unless you're making jewelry, which is what people were using resin printers for. They would model and make jewelry with a wax type resin, and they would
cast it after.
And burn it out. The wax.
Yeah.
But, now it's like an acrylic resin. Okay. And, but yeah, those are expensive, but now they're coming down in price.
Okay. Do you think that the cost for printing, the physical cost for printing that you do, cause I know it was like $10 for the STL file, the file to actually do the print. Do you feel that the cost of the printer plus the stuff you need, the resin, I guess, is worth it? To make your own minis? Like, do you make enough of them that it makes a difference for you?
Well, that's an odd question because it's basically you have to go into it as a hobby.
Okay.
It's like, is what you're doing for your hobby worth it?
Okay.
Like if you're doing a model plane or radio controlled cars, I mean, it's a hobby. Is what you're paying for it worth it? Well, it's worth it to you.
Okay.
But if you wanted to make money off of it, it's going to be hard to compete with the industrial people because they have, well, printers that are like $10,000, $30,000 that you can't really meet that quality, and the throughput is going to be lower for you. But, you know, you could recoup some money. Shapeway is a good place. You could make a model and put it up, and people can buy it and they'll print it for you, and then you'll get, you know, whatever you charge for that 3D model.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. One of the things that I got into briefly with one of my friends who started me into it. Now I have way too many of it. Was that as a kid, I always wanted the dungeon. I wanted a physical dungeon, walls that I could place and do things with.
I think we've all seen those pictures online of people with like a 5x8 table just covered in dungeon tiles.
Like that right there seemed so awesome to me. And then I started working with like the Hearst molds and the plaster and doing it, and it was so cool to do. And then I realized I had to paint every single one of those.
Oh yeah.
So
that's when you gave them to me?
Well, you wanted to borrow them, so you know, that kind of happened.
I opened my mouth and said, "Wouldn't it be cool if I had a couple of these?" And you went,
"Enjoy yourself."
Just what to do.
Yeah, but I could see myself getting back because there is something special about having physical terrain. And
sure.
I want to get to one of the questions that came in, and this is where it kind of triggered me. Was Technology asked about tools of the trade and how we handle maps, and do we prefer hand drawn or digitally made? Now, for me, I am crappy at artistry. I will flat out say that. I am not an artist. I am not even good at geometry. I did do architectural and mechanical drawing for a while, and I still sucked at it. I had to do it on a computer. So I find, like, I'll go to places like the Wizards of the Code Dungeon Mapper and just have it build me a dungeon.
Oh, yeah.
Or I'll use Dungeon or Don John, who has a ridiculous number of tools, and I will leave the link and I will come back to this again and again and say, people, go there. Because they have the quick build. Like, you can build a world from Donjon. You can build a whole, like, antique map. Like, you don't need to do anything. It just put in a couple variables and boom, and like Minecraft, it just builds you an entire world. I find that better for me. How do you guys feel about that? Do you feel that is it better to do a hand-drawn map, or do you feel it's better to do the digital ones? I mean, I find it's easier for me to do the digital ones without a doubt.
So for me, I tend to like to hand draw mine.
Okay.
Kind of in the earlier days of our game, and we may still continue going with this, as we move forward, is using those big, pads from like Office Max that have a 1-inch square grid on them. And I think they're designed more for like if you're going to draw a graph in like a business setting or something like that.
Right.
But, they work wonderfully for impromptu drawable maps, those and in a box of Crayola markers.
Yeah, because they're effectively 3M products. You could post them on a wall if you wanted to, because they have little stickies on the back.
Yep. So we've been using those, and that allows me to essentially draw my own custom maps. I have them sitting right there on the pad, so I don't have to worry about like the dry erase markers on the vinyl mat, and having to waste your guys' time while we're sitting, waiting for me to draw the entire thing. I literally just pull out this map and just go, okay, well, I drew this last week.
Right.
You know.
What about you, Sean?
I kind of like a hybrid method. Like I'll draw like a world map or a tavern or whatever. I'll draw it out in whatever medium, like pencil or on the computer, get an idea of what I want it to look like, a shape, and then I'll go in and load it into GIMP. And GIMP is a imaging software.
No, I love GIMP. I'm with you on GIMP. GIMP is the free version of Photoshop, basically.
Basically, yeah. It's just as powerful.
Yeah.
Unpopular opinion time. I hate GIMP.
Hey, that's fine. You can hate it.
I grew up on Photoshop.
The workflow is different.
It is.
So
yeah,
if you know Photoshop, but
my muscle memory's off.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
But yeah, I'll scan it in or redraw it if I have to, and then put it in GIMP, and I'll download textures or create my own textures from Google Images or Pinterest, and shape it.
He said the P word.
He did. I can't stand Pinterest just because maybe I feel like I can't navigate it or something.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has now turned into a hating on Pinterest podcast.
there is something that
Kate's nodding her head over there in the corner.
I want to
totally
try
with us.
out.
I also am on the I Hate Pinterest team.
And that's why you're on our team right here, Kate. This is why you're with us.
Because we all are bonded over the mutual hate of Pinterest.
That's what brings us together today.
I'll have to make a note of that. I am technology agnostic, so I have to support everything at my job. So I don't
Look,
really
if you're not
take
part of the
sides.
solution, you're part of the problem, Sean.
All right. No one likes Pinterest.
All right.
Yeah,
Anyways, so back on topic. Sorry about that.
No worries. No worries.
So I'll take images where I can and overlay it and then make my maps look like professional or good as the best as I can with this thing.
Right.
Something I did think about last night was the Unreal Engine. It's free. And they have free assets of, terrain, like realistic grass, roads and trees and that kind of stuff. So I was thinking you could build your maps using that really quick and then do like a top-down view and then take a snapshot and then use that for your terrain. And then it's going to look beautiful, and it was really easy to do. And it's all free.
That is, I've never tried that.
Phenomenal idea. Actually.
I would totally try that out. I would totally try that out.
I'm gonna play around with that.
Okay,
and,
you let me know how that goes. Yeah,
do.
put it in our Discord. Let's talk about that. Throw us some videos or something.
Right on. And we can't really talk about tabletop terrain and stuff like that without mentioning Dwarven Forge.
That is true. That is
true. Made leaps and bounds strides in I think it's plastic or resin.
Yeah.
Pre-made, pre-generated, and modular terrain pieces.
So
the
easy.
Apple of mini terrain.
Pretty much. It kind of is. You're obviously going to pay a premium for it. So if you've got money or like Critical Role, a sponsorship, you can just make whatever you want with it. But there are some really good little kits. So if there's holes in what you've got for your tabletop terrain, it's a quick way to fill those holes with high quality stuff.
Right.
Or 3D print it yourself.
That's true. That is true. Mm-hmm. So where does this leave us with tools?
Okay, so we've talked about playing the game with minis and with our terrain. We've talked about live surfaces and virtual tabletops and such. We need to talk about digital character generation and management.
Okay, this is totally your bailiwick.
Okay.
Like the D&D Beyond is amazing. I can say from a player's perspective, I have never loved a product more. In that sense, that or at least for 5th edition, because it was so nice to just be able to click on things and not have to go to a book. I love my book.
Infuriating that this was not here all those years ago.
I know.
So I think I don't want to jump right on D&D Beyond quite yet.
No, there's a few others.
I want to kind of start from the beginning. So when I first got started, and these are still very much a thing, is there's a lot of people out there who make PDF files that are editable and will do calculations and such like that
and they look
for
beautiful.
you. And you can find them for all different systems because essentially they're just a live character sheet that you can click on and fill stuff in, all the way from just typing it yourself to it, like I said, doing your calculations all for you.
Yeah, and I found a bunch of those on DriveThruRPG, but I mean, you can go to Reddit and just search within one of the channels.
Sure, pretty much every game system is going to have a subreddit, and most of those subreddits will have a lot of resources, like in the sidebar, that'll be readily available for you that you can kind of click on, and a quick Google search will usually find a lot of these things for you too. The disadvantage, obviously, is that you do have to go kind of searching for them.
Right.
So there's not really a guaranteed repository for them. I moved on from those to PC Gen when we were playing Dungeons & Dragons 3.5.
Okay, yeah.
Now PC Gen is a program it's written in Java, so I believe that makes it system agnostic in that you can run it on a Mac, you can run it on a PC, you can run it in Linux.
Yeah.
Word of the day, agnostic.
Agnostic.
We've said that quite a few times.
Yeah, we'll keep going to that too.
But it's good though because it means that it's not platform dependent. So really anybody can use it if you have an appropriate computer.
Right.
You can just search for it, PC Gen, and it's a program essentially that loads in a bunch of different source files and will do all the character creation for you. It will take you through those character creation steps.
Nice.
You'll be able to, select options, tweak things, hit the little plus and minus buttons until you've spent all your character points or whatever. And it's very good. I believe it's only really for Dungeons and Dragons and its various versions.
Right.
I know we pulled it up for 5th edition before we...
They did update it with 5th edition stuff.
Yeah.
And I know that there's ones like that for Shadowrun. There's, I think it's SR Gen is another one that's there, which was incredible when we were building our characters for Shadowrun, which is an impossible game just to have. I mean, you need half the book for character generation.
Oh, yeah.
But it's amazing what it can do there. So I get that customization that you need for those kind of pieces. So it's definitely a good ad.
And then we get to D&D Beyond. And I'd seen that it advertised on Critical Role. Kind of didn't know what all the big whoop was about. And we, Sean and I and his brother and his best friend had gone up north to play, basically just to visit his mom. And we were camping out in their backyard, and this was basically as far up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan as you can get.
Right.
So we were basically just barely able to catch their Wi-Fi signal. And we decided late one night, sitting around the campfire outside of our tents, that we wanted to just kind of play a D&D one-shot. Because, I mean, what else are we going to do, you know?
Nice.
And we'd brought the books up with us, and so we were like, well, what are we going to do for character sheets? You know, the printer doesn't have any ink, and we'd have to go back inside and bug Mom and Dad with all the noise and whatnot. And I was like, well, you know, we can just pull up D&D Beyond on our phones, right? And maybe we can give that a check out. And we all
ridiculous.
Did. And we pulled up D&D on our... I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think it had just came out.
Yeah.
Near when we were up there, and we were like looking at it, and we're like, oh, maybe we can try this.
And in 5 minutes, we all had characters.
That's crazy.
It was literally that quick. It was just like, oh, you wanted a 3rd level rogue scout subclass? Sure. Just do this. Select this. Did you want to roll your hit points, or did you want us to calculate them automatically? Okay, cool. Select your starting equipment. Good. You're done.
Rob, do you remember the character creator that 3.0 came out with?
The one that was in the back of the book?
On the CD-ROM.
The CD in the back? I think I still have mine in my book.
Oh, I'm
in the
sure
back.
I do, yeah.
I think making a character with that took longer, for whatever reason, than the D&D Beyond thing.
That's crazy.
I'm not sure why. It was kind of the same stuff. It was all available.
Well, I think they kind of took the Baldur's Gate path of maybe, like, it asked you a lot of questions that were great, but really aren't 100% necessary. Plus, 5th edition kind of, with its backgrounds and things like that, have kind of flushed through that a lot faster, I think.
Yep.
So
5th edition is definitely more streamlined. So that's part of it.
We could go over systems for forever. So
I'd say the pros and cons of D&D Beyond. I'll go over the cons real quick first, because there are very few, but they all have price tags on them.
Right.
And that's essentially it. That evening I spent a pretty penny on the whole deluxe Dungeon Master. I forgot exactly what the name of the package is, but it was like $350, I think, or something like that. It was a lot of money, but every single campaign, first off, I own that stuff now on my account. And then what I'm able to do is, as the storyteller, I'm able to extend all of those things to anybody who joins my campaigns. So when you're building your character, there are certain things that are free that are basically just your SRD sort of stuff. But if you want anything out of like Xanathar's Guide, or Guide to Everything, or any of the supplements, or the Sword Coast Adventure Guide, or whatnot, you have to purchase those books.
Wow.
But since I have the big, the big all-inclusive package, all of those things are available, and then anybody who plays in my games, those things are then available to you guys to build your characters with.
Which is a huge cost savings.
Oh, yeah.
Not everybody needs a copy of the book, and you're not trading them around the table when someone's got a question about something.
They are definitely cheaper than the actual physical books.
Yeah.
So if you can get, away from that, then I think it's a good investment, especially if you have like 3 or 4 players and you play every week or whatever for a long time. Then, they can all pitch in, and it's not so big of a burden. I mean, definitely don't have your GM the only one who pays for it, because it should be a collaborative thing.
Right.
I don't see why not. Yeah.
But,
and keeping in mind too that all those books are available to you. It's not just access to the source stuff to build characters with. It's available. Like if I wanted to go read through Xanathar's Guide right now, I could do it online.
All right.
And it's all cross-referenced and searchable.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Okay. All right. Let's get to enhancing games beyond the stuff that we do, the stuff that we know,
the fun stuff,
the extra
the theatrics.
stuff, the theatrics. And we're going to have to crush through this if we even want to get to our community questions. But I find your theatrics amazing. Like, literally, I brought in something that you were talking about or that we talked about before, which is being able to add audio enhancement. Now, we plugged this in, and literally I've got this interface on my tablet. It's pretty simple.
Okay.
And I can just tap a key, and suddenly we're sitting in an inn.
What program are you looking at there?
Now, this is Sirenscape.
Okay.
And I can have laughing.
It's like I'm there.
Exactly. Exactly. I can then say, oh, almost everybody's gone home.
I feel like I should have a beer with.
And we
with
just
that in
got the fire in the background. No big deal. It's a little quiet, It's real easy. There's nothing else. Maybe some people are moving around.
And he's doing that with just brief taps on his tablet right now. He's just going through all of that. So.
Yeah. I mean, maybe there's a musician who wanted to play for us. I can throw that in. And I love that. And this can just be sitting in the background while you're gaming and make you feel like you're in that scene.
Independent volume controls on them as well and such.
Yeah. On every single piece of this. And in this that I just did, it's free. This is literally available on their site, and people use this, and I think it's incredible. I mean, you pointed me
sewer
to
sounds.
They actually do. The funny one that got me, and there's some joke behind this in the back of my head for one of our listeners, is that the other one that you gave me, which was tabletop audio, which is more of a soundboard. I mean, they do have their music as well, but I loved the idea.
More based around ambience.
Yeah, I loved the idea of having pure ambiance, and how this is where we could have there's a stagecoach. Maybe there's a sheriff.
I look like I got time for chit-chatting.
Sitting on that.
Why don't you have that playing when we're playing the game and I'm in that fancy carriage that Rob's character bought me?
Because I'm a bad storyteller.
Oh, you're pretty good. You're definitely good.
I hold my own.
But this kind of stuff amazes me, that we that makes what we used to do and the way we used to describe things to our players and trying to make the world seem real is now so much easier. Now you can just continue the story.
Yeah.
You don't have to say, as the dust is flying off your stuff, you watch as the stagecoach rickle. No, you can literally just start playing it.
Yep.
And they can hear it.
Takes stuff off of the players' plates as far as what they have to imagine.
Yeah.
If you're actually hearing the wind blowing and the stagecoach coming up and stuff like that, you don't have to imagine that.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Yeah. I mean,
you're right there.
And you brought up last week talking about, or not last week, one of the previous shows, I'm trying to remember what show, using things like our live music from YouTube and from
iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. There's a lot of royalty-free tracks up there.
Yeah.
They're really great, kind of thematic, a lot of mood and stuff like that. There's a lot of game soundtracks that are up there.
Yeah.
As well. I have a lot of the Elder Scrolls and Elder Scrolls Online soundtrack put into my playlists. Movie soundtracks are also really good.
Yeah.
And so you can actually really build a lot of really good thematic music playlists. And then I just have mine broken into peaceful music or fight music, or I've actually got a playlist called Oh Shit. And that's for there is a boss battle or an apocalypse or something like that going on. There's creepy crypt music, that sort of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and the other thing you can do is, if you are crafty enough, there are several free tools out there, GarageBand, Audacity, just to name two of them, that will allow you to create your own audio.
Right.
Which is something I've done in the past.
Yeah, you did the news, a news show.
Right. We, for Aberrant,
yeah.
The players had done, something pretty major and made the evening news. So actually you and I sat down one night and, recorded an actual news segment. And we grabbed a little, 15-second free clip of, news intro music off of freeplaymusic.com or something. And I threw together a news report about what they had done the previous game.
I think it was incredible, honestly. It had a huge impact for them when you did the adventure games for us, and you did like literally, it sounded like you were
the old radio show intro.
Yeah, and you put the tin sound to it almost.
Yep.
You know, a little bit
voice
of
filter to
nasally.
kind of make it sound like I was that old tinny radio, and I announced all the players like they were the voice actors portraying the characters in a radio drama.
Yeah, like the Phantom, only the Phantom knows kind of stuff. And I thought that was incredible.
And it was like, when we last saw our heroes,
exactly.
they were...
I thought that was incredible. And
what will happen next?
It adds so much flavor, Mm-hmm. And then the only other things I want to kind of throw into this real quickly, because there's a lot that you can find on YouTube, is doing like, dry ice as a simple fog on a table.
Yep. Or an atomizer. Atomizers are real good for that too.
LED light effects that are sitting within that. Like, I watched a guy who had taken a ring of just LED lights and then put cotton over it, and then built the scenery in the middle of it so it looked like they were literally sitting up in the clouds and fighting on top of a tower. And I was like, that's a neat little simple effect.
I've seen people who took those little flickering candles, candle LEDs, and put tufts of cotton over them and spray painted them to look like billowing smoke.
Oh, nice.
And then use them as hit markers, for like explosions.
Oh, nice.
I would like to say a lot of people probably don't know where to get dry ice.
That's true.
And
I think you can just get it at your local supermarket. Usually,
you go to your local supermarket,
Meijer around here has it.
Meijer is good. Go to the deli or where they're cutting up the meat and everything, and just ask for it.
Yeah, they'll point you right to it.
They'll give you a couple pounds for like $5.
Yeah, it's you be careful with it because it will burn you. It's kind of weird to say that, but it will.
Right.
But you don't need much to do a lot, and for God's sakes, don't put it in drinks that you're drinking.
Oh, yeah.
I recommend the atomizer because that's just
safer.
A hypersonic, supersonic speaker thing that atomizes water. But if you need dry ice for whatever reason, that's where you can get it.
Yeah, nice. Good point. All right. So we actually get enough time to try and squeeze some of these questions in. Let's real quickly do a 5-minute recap on what are your final thoughts? What's some pros and cons? When is too much too much?
I think too much is too much when you're getting frustrated and you're spending an hour at the beginning of the game trying to get things working.
That is a fair way of putting it.
If that happens, just stop and go with what you have. I mean, really, D&D can be played with the books and whatever is in your head. If you have character sheets, you're ready to go. You don't need any of this technology to play.
All right.
I used to play with literally a pencil and a piece of paper and not even books back in the day when I was a kid.
Yeah.
This was AD&D 2.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was. I think AD&D was
fair
considered
enough.
2, but whatever was named.
Okay.
We didn't have character sheets and we could still play. So you don't need this technology.
Okay.
I'm going to agree. Once technology starts here, once you start tripping over the technology, you're using too much.
Fair enough. For me, I would say start simple. If you're literally new to the game, don't go fancy. Don't show your A game because they're going to want that A game every single game after that.
Yeah, if you're
bring it on slowly.
If you're new, paper, pencil, and maybe some tabletop audio.
Even
because that's easy enough to do on your phone.
Yeah.
That doesn't require an investiture of any money or time or effort.
And
plug in or Bluetooth speaker with your phone, you're ready to
perfect.
go.
Yeah. I mean, if you got a Chromecast and you can cast to something, that's perfectly fine.
Sure.
Start simple. Start with what you know. If you're an artist, make a custom map. Great.
Yep.
Have some fun with it.
Yep.
If you're a musician, you've got the audio stuff. Just go to it. I'm going to say this. If you're a wedding designer and you've got a ton of those candles, throw them up around the room when you're running that vampire LARP. Make it cool. Just add a little bit of flavor, but don't show your full A game because otherwise
make sure you have a fire marshal on hand.
All right, I think we've got about a little less than 10 minutes left in the show, so let's hit some of these questions because I know we've got some people out there, and I want Sean to get in on some of these. So, all right, I'm gonna hit you with the first one, Sarah.
All right.
This is from Knox in a Box. Do I have to know what kind of storyteller I am before I choose tools? If yes, what would you suggest to figure out what kind of a storyteller I am? Or how do I use that knowledge to decide what tools are?
Okay, so this is a whole show by itself.
I agree.
In fact, it may in fact be our very next show.
It could very well be.
So stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
But
Finding yourself.
the short answer for tonight,
just a short one,
is you won't know what type of storyteller you are until you start playing.
Fair enough.
Once you start playing, it's just. I liken it to just like playing a character. You can plan out what you want that character to be. You can say this character is nice, or this character is greedy, or this character is wrathful, or whatever. But once you start playing and you start reacting in live time, you start learning things about that character, and it kind of gets away from you.
Right.
And it's the same way with being a storyteller. You can sit down with a plan, but once you get into game, you're going to find stuff that you thought would work isn't working, and what you thought wasn't going to work really kind of makes the game pretty smooth.
And I think your players have a lot to do with that too.
Yeah, sure.
Because you may have ideas for this table and these people,
right.
and you get into it, and they are not interested in any of that.
Exactly. And you game to the group, so you may become the type of storyteller you never thought you were going to be. So
exactly.
Sit down, play, and figure it out from there. That's the answer.
Awesome. Okay. I want this second one to go to Sean, actually.
All right, Sean. This one also
really
comes
attacked
from
right now.
This one, we're gonna gang up on you.
Yeah.
This one also comes from Knox in a Box. He asks, do you sometimes have to use various tools based on how your players learn, like a teacher with their lesson plans? Would you worry that people who learn visually might miss a clue or misinterpret information not given in a format they can see or imagine easily?
Yeah, I actually kind of worry about this quite a bit. And that's why I like to use a lot of the technology that I do, is because I worry that the players don't see what I see in my head.
Okay.
And the best way that I can show them what I'm thinking of is visual. Having a digital map or having scenery in some fashion, whether it's physical or digital.
Okay.
Right. So you don't have to worry about like describing it incorrectly or something like that if you can literally just say, this is what it looks like.
Right. And with the audio stuff that you were doing, you can also have the sounds playing in the background, and then you can just create a spooky or creepy atmosphere, and I didn't have to really say anything. I'd be like, you guys enter the sewers, and this is how it sounds, and then he starts playing, and this is what it looks like, and you have your digital map there or your scenery on the table, and you can be like, there you go. And I mean, it does take away the mind's eye a little bit, but
I mean, some people don't have that.
Exactly. Some people can't imagine that stuff very easily, and you don't know how they learn.
It's got a name for it. Aphantasia,
right?
You were saying.
Yeah, aphantasia.
It's the inability to form mental images of objects that are not present. So if I describe to you what a cat looks like, if you have aphantasia, you will not be able to put my words together and form a picture of that cat in your mind's eye.
That blows my mind.
It's like you know what an apple looks like, and you have the sense of it in your head, but you can't see a mental picture of it. Is kind of how it is.
Fair.
So it's not like you're blind to the description. It's just you don't have a mental picture, but you have a sense of the object.
Yeah, and I think, like, I know I have played games where I've had people at my table who are hard of hearing.
Yep.
And so sometimes too much stimulus causes a problem. Like if I would have had like speakers up or something like that, and I'm trying to deal with a storm or something, they may not even be able to hear me speak over all of this background chatter. So I think that's something else you have to play to your players as well. So I think you have to learn your players and what their strengths and weaknesses, because they may not know all of them, or they may not have told you all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and
a good example of that kind of understanding or the focusing is, as a guy, if you're driving down the road and you get lost or you don't know what's going on, do you turn the radio down?
I do.
Yeah. That's because our men process the audio and all that stuff a little bit differently. And we need to focus. We need less things in the way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that also attaches to that question about how players learn. In this case, it's how players can focus or understand what you're trying to do.
Fair enough.
So if you have like all these different stimuli playing in your game, mostly audio, some people have a hard time focusing. Let alone, be able to hear certain things. So there's always those kind of things that you have to think about in the psychology. So.
I hope that helps Knox. I know we've got one more question I'm going to try and squeeze in real quick here. And that's, how much do you normally have your main campaign fleshed out before you start a new game? Now, there's a lot more in here, and I will say, Draven, you are a weirdo, but you're a weirdo like us.
Right,
so
you're a weirdo, but not because of this question.
Yeah, so I'm gonna pause it right there. Simply put, I will say, don't worry as much about the super flushing out everything. We're going to get to a show where we talk about campaigns and we describe the details of it. But in short, keep it simple. Know the drive of your campaign, but work episode to episode.
If I'm not doing a module, what I do is the same as a technique in writing is I will have my ending and then I work backwards.
Yep.
And that's how I'll do a big campaign.
And
I'll flesh out the ending, the middle, and the beginning, and then that's it. If it's a big thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Typically, I've got my start point, my end point, and then I sketch everything in between, very loosely, and then wherever the party wanders, that's what I start filling in detail and coloring and drawing with hard lines.
Okay. I think our engineer is sweating a little bit. And so we are coming to the end of our show.
No. Kate does not sweat. She glistens.
That's true. She's glistening. So the topic for next week, as you might have guessed, is first-time storytelling tips. How to get started behind the DM screen. Remember, you can find us on Twitter at @STConclave or Instagram @ST_conclave and join our Discord. It is in the Twitter pinned page. Come, interact. Put your questions in. Let us talk about them on the show.
Want to give a very special thanks to our guest today, Sean.
Thank you. If you want to ask me any tech questions or DM questions, I'm Heatsink in the Discord.
This is our intro music. We want to thank Beyond the Warriors by Gooey Frog. And our outro music, which you're hearing right now, is Only Our Footprints in the Sand by Mid-Air Machine. You can find both of these tracks and so much more on freemusicarchive.org.
Or Podcast Detroit is where we love to do our shows. Come down, see Kate, enjoy. They can be found on Twitter at podcastdetroit.com or just at Podcast Detroit. Again, we want to thank Vicky and thank you, Sean, for joining us on the show and all of our friends who helped us enjoy our games. Please join us next week.